Have you ever wondered why some souls carry a silence that feels heavier than words? Why, when you look into certain eyes, it's as if you're staring into a mirror of every sorrow you've ever known. Suffering has a language of its own, ancient, wordless, and carved deep into the spirit. You can't always see it, but you can feel it. It lingers in the pauses between breaths, in the way someone hesitates before trusting again, in the quiet strength that hides beneath a weary smile. Carl Jung once said that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. He didn't mean this as punishment. He meant that pain is the initiation. It breaks the illusions we cling to and exposes the soul beneath the surface. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment you thought would destroy you, they were not random. They were the chisels shaping the truth of who you are. When you've suffered deeply, your energy changes. You stop chasing noise and start seeking meaning. You become a silent observer of a world still obsessed with masks and noise. But this transformation leaves traces, patterns that only those who have endured recognize in one another. They are subtle, hidden traits that mark the wounded yet awakened ones. Some call it trauma. Others call it awakening. Whatever name you give it, suffering reshapes the very architecture of your soul. It rewires your instincts, your boundaries, your capacity to love, to forgive, to trust. In this journey, we will uncover the unseen traits that suffering leaves behind, not as curses, but as codes of survival, proof that your soul has walked through fire and still glows in the dark. Because when life breaks you open, something extraordinary begins to take shape within the cracks. And it is in those cracks where the light first enters that the truth about who you've become starts to reveal itself. There are moments in life when reality begins to flicker, when something ordinary trembles with a strange, quiet meaning. You wake in the middle of the night, heart racing, as if someone whispered your name in a dream you can't quite remember. You walk into a room and forget why you came, only to feel the weight of a presence that can't be explained. A familiar scent fills the air, one that belonged to someone long gone, and for a brief instant the world feels paper-thin, as though the veil between the seen and unseen has torn open. Most people brush these moments away. They say, "It's just my imagination." But deep down, you sense otherwise. Because suffering sharpens the senses. When the heart has been broken enough times, it becomes a listening instrument, tuned to the subtle frequencies that others ignore. You begin to notice patterns that seem too precise to be random. Numbers repeating on clocks. A song playing at the exact moment you need to hear its words. A stranger saying something that answers a question you never spoke aloud. You try to dismiss it, but the feeling returns, that you are being spoken to by something greater, a presence that doesn't use words, but signs. Jung called this synchronicity, the mysterious alignment between your inner world and outer events. To him, it was not luck or superstition, but the psyche's secret dialogue with the divine. Maybe you've felt this too, standing at the edge of despair, asking for a sign, and then something happens, a feather on your path, a sudden calm when you expected panic, a voice, soft and reassuring, inside your own mind saying, "Keep going." It's as though suffering opens a doorway through which the unseen begins to reach you. Pain has stripped away your distractions, leaving your awareness raw, naked, receptive. You start to sense things before they happen. You think of someone moments before they call. You dream of water, and the next day it rains. These aren't coincidences. They're the universe's way of telling you that your soul has crossed a threshold. You are not disconnected. You are being recalibrated. And yet this awakening feels confusing. Your logical mind wants proof, while your spirit feels an undeniable pull toward mystery. You may feel tingling sensations, chills, or sudden fatigue when walking into certain places. Your body reacts before your mind understands why. The language of the soul is not written in words, but in sensations, emotions, and patterns that repeat until you finally listen. Have you noticed how, after deep loss, time itself seems to shift? Days blur together, dreams grow vivid, and even silence feels full. It's because suffering loosens the grip of the material world. It opens your perception, allowing whispers from the unseen to slip through. Some call it intuition. Others call it divine guidance. Jung might call it the voice of the unconscious, the hidden self trying to lead you home. So you start paying attention. You stop dismissing what your heart already knows. Every shiver, every coincidence, every unexplainable moment begins to weave a pattern, one that feels like a message written specifically for you. And as you look closer, you realize that the same force that once broke you is now trying to awaken you. But what if these signs are not just comfort? What if they are mirrors, reflections of something buried within you, waiting to be brought into the light? What if the true message isn't coming from outside at all, but from the parts of yourself you've been afraid to face? The question then is this: when the universe begins to whisper through your suffering, will you have the courage to listen to what it's really trying to say? There is a truth that few dare to say out loud. Suffering awakens. Sight, not the sight of the eyes, but of the soul, the kind that perceives what others overlook. This is the first hidden trait of those who have endured too much, the awakening of sacred perception. When life breaks you open, you begin to see in a different way. The same world stands before you, the same streets, faces, voices, yet something within you has shifted. What used to seem solid now feels transparent, almost symbolic. Every word, every event, every silence starts to shimmer with hidden meaning. Jung called this the moment of psychic rebirth, the beginning of consciousness that only arrives through pain, because only a broken vessel can let light enter. Think about it. Before suffering, you lived mostly on the surface, chasing, planning, controlling. But once pain cracked your illusions, you began to notice the subtle rhythm beneath life's noise. You started to feel what Jung described as the whispers of the self, the higher center of being that lives beyond the ego. To the awakened, reality becomes a mirror. Nothing is random. Everything becomes a message. Perhaps you felt it yourself. That strange sensation when someone's words cut deeper than they should, as if they were meant for you, or when a stranger's kindness arrives at the exact moment you were losing hope. Maybe you once dreamed of water and woke up crying, realizing later that the dream was not about the sea, but about your soul's need to flow again. These are not coincidences. They are communications from the unconscious, from the divine intelligence that exists beyond logic, speaking in the only language you can understand, symbols and emotion. Ancient mystics knew this long before psychology gave it a name. In Egypt, priests taught that divine truth was hidden within ordinary experience, and only those broken by the gods could perceive it. The early Christians spoke of the dark night of the soul, when the spirit is purified by fire until it begins to discern light in the darkness. And in Jung's own writings, he revealed that suffering initiates the process of individuation, the alchemical transformation through which the human being becomes whole. That is why those who have suffered often describe a strange clarity that others cannot understand. They see the world's pain, but also its beauty. They sense energy before words are spoken. They can feel dishonesty, hunger, despair, not as thoughts, but as vibrations. This is sacred perception, a sensitivity born from survival, a gift disguised as a scar. You might ask, why me? Why do I feel so much? Why can't I be like others, detached, unaffected, untouched? Because your soul has been tempered in fire, and fire does not destroy gold, it purifies it. The emotions you carry, the fear, the nostalgia, the quiet melancholy, are not flaws. They are antennae. They connect you to layers of existence that most people cannot even sense. Where others see coincidence, you see connection. Where others see endings, you feel transformation beginning. This is why those who suffer are often drawn to silence, nature, solitude. They are not escaping, they are listening. To the wind that speaks in symbols, to the dreams that rewrite forgotten truths, to the pulse of something divine beating just beneath the skin of the world. And here lies the hidden teaching. Suffering is not punishment, it is initiation. It strips away what is false so you can perceive what is real. When the external world collapses, the inner world begins to speak. And that voice, the one you hear in the stillness after tears, is not madness, it is revelation. Jung once wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." He meant that beneath your pain lies pattern, purpose, and guidance. The universe itself bends to communicate with a soul that is finally awake. That is why after deep loss, you start to recognize symbols, birds appearing where you thought there would be none, songs repeating like mantras, dreams carrying the same message again and again. The veil is thinner for those who have suffered, but this awareness carries responsibility. For the awakened, there is no going back to ignorance. You can no longer pretend that life is random or meaningless. Once your eyes have adjusted to this deeper vision, everything, even your suffering, becomes part of a dialogue with the divine. And so, if you have noticed strange alignments lately, moments that feel too perfect, too intentional to dismiss, consider that this is not your imagination. It is the first sign that your pain has turned into perception, that the same force that once wounded you is now guiding you. Let that awareness grow. Watch the patterns. Listen to your dreams. Pay attention to what repeats, because repetition is the soul's way of insisting on being heard. You are not losing your mind. You are learning its deeper language. And if this message resonates with you, if you feel that something within these words speaks directly to your hidden wounds, I invite you to stay close. Like-minded souls gather here, not by chance, but by recognition. Give this video a like, not as a gesture, but as an affirmation. I see the signs. And subscribe, not to a channel, but to a community, a circle of awakening souls walking through the same sacred fire together. Because what comes next will reveal why this heightened perception is not only a gift, but also a burden few understand. I remember the night everything changed. It wasn't dramatic, no thunder, no divine voice breaking the sky. It was quieter than that. The kind of silence that makes you realize something sacred is listening. I had been living in survival mode for years. Every day felt like walking across broken glass, cautious, controlled, numb. My mind was loud, but my soul was quiet. I was functioning, but I wasn't alive. One evening, I came home to an empty apartment. The air felt heavier than usual. I dropped my keys on the table and just stopped. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint city noise through the window, even my heartbeat. Everything seemed distant, as if the world had stepped aside, leaving me alone with something invisible. I sat on the floor, surrounded by nothing but my own exhaustion, and whispered a question into the dark. If there's meaning in all this pain, please show me. For a long time there was no answer. Then, slowly, the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't a vision, more like a wave of stillness, deep and absolute. I felt warmth at the center of my chest, spreading outward, steady and patient. It was as though something ancient had heard me. Not out there, but within. That night, I dreamed of walking through a forest made of light. Every tree glowed softly, and the air was filled with a hum I could feel in my bones. I saw people moving among the trees, not strangers, but faces from my past. Some I had lost. Some I had hurt. Some had hurt me, yet none of them spoke. They only looked at me, and in their eyes I saw something terrifying and tender: forgiveness. When I woke, my pillow was wet with tears, but my heart was calm. It wasn't joy, exactly, more like recognition. For the first time, I understood what Jung meant when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The dream wasn't random. It was my unconscious finally showing me what I had refused to face, that all the pain I carried, all the losses and betrayals, were not there to punish me, but to return me to myself. Every wound had been a doorway. Every heartbreak had been a teacher. A few weeks later, something strange began happening. People started coming to me. Friends, co-workers, even strangers, telling me their stories, their grief, their fears. It was as if my suffering had carved a space inside me that could hold theirs. I didn't have to say much, I just listened. And in that silence, something powerful unfolded. They would talk, they would cry, and at some point they'd stop and whisper, "I don't know why I'm telling you this." I did. Pain recognizes pain, but it also recognizes truth. Through those moments, I realized that my wounds had turned into windows, openings through which compassion could enter and flow outward. I wasn't healed yet, but I was healing others, and in doing so, something inside me was healing too. Still, this gift carried a shadow. There were days when listening to others pulled me back into my own memories. Days when I could feel the old ache trying to take root again. I began to understand that helping others was not the same as helping myself. I needed boundaries. I needed to face the parts of me I had been soothing through other people's pain. So I started writing. Journals filled with pages of truth I had never dared to speak, memories I wanted to forget, questions I couldn't answer. It was ugly and raw, but it was real. And within that mess of ink and tears, a pattern began to form, a language my soul had been speaking all along. One evening I returned to the forest in my dreams, but this time it was different. The trees were still made of light, but at the center there was a mirror. I walked toward it, afraid of what I might see. The reflection was not my face, but a younger version of me, the one who still believed that love meant being unbroken. She looked at me with wide, steady eyes and said nothing. But I understood. She wasn't waiting for rescue. She was waiting for recognition. That moment changed everything. I realized that true healing doesn't come from erasing the past, but from embracing it, from standing face to face with the parts of yourself that suffered and saying, "I see you. You can rest now." Since then, I've noticed how many people walk around with invisible grief, pretending to be fine, afraid to speak their truth. They carry their pain like armor, never realizing it could become a compass. When I see them, I see myself, the version of me who once believed she had to survive instead of live. And maybe that's why you're here, listening now. Because some part of you feels this too, the pull between who you were and who you're becoming. The ache that tells you something in you is still unfinished, not broken, but waiting to be understood. If this story touched you, tell me yours. Share the moment when you felt something larger than yourself, a dream, a sign, a whisper you couldn't explain. Write it in the comments below. I read them, every single one. And in our next gathering, I may share one of them. Because your story might be the light someone else needs to find their way through the dark. For now, remember this. Sometimes the most powerful revelations don't arrive in temples or visions. They arrive in the quiet, trembling heart of a person who finally dares to listen. And when you do, what you hear next may change everything. There is a sacred law whispered through every ancient tradition and rediscovered in modern psychology. What you resist persists, but what you face transforms. This is the second hidden trait of those who have suffered too much. the ability to turn pain into awareness. At first, it doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like an endless loop. The same people, the same heartbreak, the same fears repeating in different disguises. You might wonder why you keep attracting similar situations, why peace never stays for long, why joy always feels borrowed. But there is a reason for this repetition, and it is not punishment. It is the soul's way of teaching you through patterns until you finally see the message hidden within them. Jung called this process active confrontation with the shadow. Every wound we carry, every disappointment, every heartbreak is an unhealed part of us trying to return home. When you resist it, when you distract yourself, deny it, numb it, it doesn't disappear. It burrows deeper. It starts to shape your choices, your relationships, even your body. The shadow will speak until it is heard. And so life becomes the stage where your unconscious scripts play out again and again. Not to torture you, but to awaken you. The great sign that this process is unfolding is recurrence, the spiritual déjà vu of your own life. You meet different faces, but the emotion is the same. You walk away from one situation only to find another that mirrors it perfectly. And just when you think you've escaped, it circles back. That is not coincidence. That is divine precision. It means your soul is asking, are you ready to heal this, not by running, but by finally seeing it? The ancients understood this as the wheel of samsara, the endless cycle of lessons repeating until consciousness intervenes. Jung translated this wisdom into modern terms: individuation, the process of becoming whole. To become whole, you must integrate the parts of yourself you once rejected. To integrate them, you must first recognize their presence, and that is where your suffering becomes your greatest guide. So how do you recognize this sign in your life? It begins with awareness. Every time you find yourself asking, why does this keep happening to me? Pause. That question is not self-pity. It is the soul knocking. Write down what you feel in those moments. What emotion always returns? What memory or fear hides behind it? If the pattern is abandonment, ask, where did I first learn that love leaves? If it's betrayal, ask, when did I first stop trusting myself? If it's rejection, ask, whose approval did I once crave to feel worthy? This is the practical key, a simple ancient technique wrapped in modern understanding, the mirror method. Whenever you encounter pain, conflict, or emotional tension, treat it not as an attack from the outside, but as a reflection of something within you asking to be acknowledged. You don't need to force forgiveness or fix anything, just observe. Feel without judgment. Write down what the moment mirrors. What emotion does it trigger? What memory rises with it? Then, instead of pushing it away, say silently to yourself, I see you. You are allowed to exist. Now that single act, witnessing without resistance, begins the alchemy, because what the shadow truly wants is not to dominate you, but to be seen by you. Every time you bring awareness to what once hid in darkness, you reclaim energy, strength, and clarity. It's as if you've been holding pieces of your soul in exile, and one by one, they begin to return. Try it for a week. When frustration arises, watch it. When anxiety grips you, breathe into it. When an old wound reopens, resist the urge to label it bad. Instead ask, what are you showing me about myself that I need to remember? Do this long enough and something profound begins to happen. Life stops repeating. The same lessons no longer return in disguise because the student has awakened. The cycle breaks, not because the world changes, but because you do. Pain, then, becomes a teacher. It loses its power to control you. You begin to sense peace, not because everything is perfect, but because you understand the purpose behind the imperfection. Jung wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, but once you do, suffering no longer defines you, it refines you. This is how true spiritual maturity begins, not in the absence of pain, but in the ability to read its language. When something hurts, instead of asking, "Why me?" you begin to ask, "What is this trying to awaken in me?" And in that shift, the entire structure of your reality changes. So the next time you recognize the same pattern returning, the same disappointment, the same ache, the same silence from the universe, pause, smile gently, because that repetition is not failure. It is a sacred signal. It means your soul trusts you enough to try again, this time with awareness. You are not cursed. You are being completed. And every shadow you bring to light becomes a fragment of gold within you, what the alchemists once called the philosopher's stone, the spirit transformed by the weight of its own suffering. If these words resonate with you, if you've recognized your own patterns as mirrors rather than punishments, remember, you are not alone in this journey. Like-minded souls gather here, learning to see pain differently, to turn wounds into wisdom. Give this video a like, not for me, but as a silent vow to yourself. I am ready to stop running from my lessons and subscribe to this community, this circle of seekers who choose awareness over avoidance and transformation over repetition. Because beyond this door lies a sign even deeper, one that reveals why some souls are chosen to carry light through darkness itself. And once you understand it, nothing about your suffering will ever look the same again. There is a truth that lives beneath every philosophy, every sacred text, every revelation whispered through centuries of human searching. A truth so simple, yet so unbearable, that most souls spend lifetimes avoiding it. Suffering is not proof that God has abandoned you. It is proof that He is awakening within you. This is the deepest, most hidden sign of all. The moment when pain no longer feels like punishment, but begins to sound like a calling. When the silence of heaven, which once terrified you, becomes a mirror so clear that you begin to see the divine reflected inside yourself. For the mystics of every tradition, this was the secret at the heart of existence, the alchemy of the soul. The early Christian contemplatives called it kenosis, the sacred emptying, to lose everything until only the eternal remains. In the East, sages described it as the dissolution of the ego, the moment when the illusion of separation burns away, and you realize that the light you prayed to was never outside of you. It was breathing inside you all along. Jung called it individuation, the process by which the self, the divine core within, emerges through the fractures of the personality. That is the paradox. The soul does not awaken through comfort, but through collapse. When everything you thought you were is stripped away, your plans, your beliefs, your certainties, something infinite rushes in to fill the empty space. It is not destruction, it is resurrection. I remember reading once that stars are born when immense pressure causes their cores to ignite. Without the crushing weight, there is no light. So too with you. Your suffering was the weight, your endurance, the ignition. That is why those who have suffered deeply often carry a strange radiance, quiet, unexplainable, magnetic. It's not the glow of perfection. It's the glow of having met both heaven and hell and realizing they were never separate. Maybe you felt it. That brief, sacred stillness after a storm of tears, that strange peace that arrives not because things got better, but because you finally stopped fighting what is. That peace is God moving through the ruins. That peace is you remembering who you were before the pain taught you fear. And this is where the greatest revelation unfolds. The wound was never your enemy. It was the doorway. Every spiritual tradition echoes this truth in its own language. Jesus showed it with his own body. The resurrection did not erase the wounds, it transfigured them. They became the proof of transcendence, the living symbols that pain and divinity can coexist within the same flesh. Buddha revealed it through the middle path, freedom not from suffering but through understanding it. Jung echoed it in modern language. There is no light without shadow and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. So perhaps your suffering was not meant to be solved but sanctified. Perhaps it was never meant to end, but to evolve from pain into presence, from loss into wisdom, from chaos into clarity. That is the real miracle, not escaping the fire, but realizing you have become flame. When you understand this, something shifts. You no longer chase happiness as if it was somewhere else. You no longer beg the universe to remove your challenges. Instead, you begin to ask a holier question. What is this trying to awaken in me now? And suddenly, everything, every silence, every loss, every tear becomes sacred. I want to pause here just for a moment. If these words have reached you, if you feel them stirring something deep inside that you can't quite name, know this. This message exists because of you. This space, this community, was born not for profit or popularity, but out of love for truth, for healing, for awakening. Every like, every subscription, every comment you leave isn't just support. It's energy, a shared intention that allows these messages to reach more souls who are still lost in the dark. If you believe in what we're building here, a place for seekers, for the wounded, for the awakening, then I ask you now, from the heart, like this video, subscribe, and help us keep this flame alive. Together, we are more than an audience. We are a living prayer, because the greatest revelation of all is that your suffering was not random. It was sacred architecture, a divine design sculpting you from the inside out. The betrayal that broke you was the hand of truth, removing what could no longer stay. The loss that hollowed you was the chisel carving space for grace. The silence that frightened you was the sound of eternity waiting to speak. And now, you stand at the edge of something extraordinary, a threshold between what you were and what you are becoming. The final hidden truth is close, the one that explains why some souls after suffering do not just survive, they shine. But to understand that, you must first grasp the final mystery, how the heart that has been shattered becomes the vessel through which divine love enters the world. And once you see that, nothing will ever look the same again. All along, you may have believed that your pain was proof of weakness, that the years of heartbreak, silence, and confusion meant that life had somehow turned against you. But what if all of it, every loss, every unanswered prayer, every sleepless night, was never a punishment, but a summons? You were never being broken. You were being carved open, shaped by invisible hands to hold more light, more wisdom, more compassion than before. Because only a soul that has known darkness can truly recognize the light when it returns. Every sign we have explored, the hyper-awareness, the expectation of disappointment, the grief that never quite leaves, the longing for meaning, the sacred ability to heal others, they are not random traits. They are spiritual fingerprints, proof that you have walked through initiation without even realizing it. You are not simply someone who has suffered. You are someone who has awakened through suffering. And maybe now you can feel it too, that quiet sense of recognition as you listen. Because deep inside, your spirit already knows. Nothing that hurt you was wasted. Each wound you carry has been preparing you to see beyond appearances, to feel beyond words, to live beyond fear. The pain that once silenced you is now your teacher. The heartbreak that shattered you is now your doorway. The confusion that once blinded you has become your compass. You are no longer who you were before the fire. And that is grace. The light you searched for was never somewhere distant. It was kindled inside your ruins, waiting for you to notice. And that light is needed now more than ever, because in a world numb with distraction, those who have suffered deeply are the ones who carry the medicine of empathy, patience, and truth. You are the bridge between despair and hope, between shadow and dawn. When others lose faith, It is your story, your scars, that remind them healing is possible. So perhaps the question is no longer, why did I suffer, but what is this suffering trying to awaken through me for others? Your pain has given you sight. Your wounds have given you language. Your endurance has given you a mission. And that mission is not to escape the world. It is to illuminate it, to live in such a way that your very presence becomes a quiet blessing to those still lost in the dark. To forgive not because it erases the past, but because it frees your future. To speak, not from perfection, but from truth, because when one awakened soul stands in their light, 1,000 others remember that they have light too. And that is how the world begins to change, not through miracles falling from the sky, but through hearts like yours, rediscovering their strength one by one. If these words have touched something in you, don't let them vanish into the noise of another day. Take a breath. Feel your heartbeat. That rhythm is proof. You are still here, still becoming, still sacred. And if you've felt seen in this message, if you've recognized yourself in any of these signs, I want to invite you into something deeper. Leave a comment below with your name and the city you're watching from, because in our next video, I'll read some of your names out loud, not as a list, but as a blessing, a recognition that across this vast world, there are souls awakening together. Let's make this community not just a channel, but a gathering, a sanctuary for the seekers, the healers, the ones who have turned pain into purpose. And if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe, not out of habit, but as a way to say, yes, I'm part of this light. This channel doesn't exist for fame or profit. It exists because we believe that one honest message can reach a heart that needs it most. Maybe yours today, maybe someone else's tomorrow. Remember this. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. You are not the wound. You are the wisdom that rose from it. And your story with all its broken edges is not over. It's only beginning to shine. Because somewhere right now, another soul is standing where you once stood, trembling, lost, searching for meaning. And when they hear your voice, your courage, your light, they will remember their own. So, take your place among us, the quiet ones, the strong ones, the ones who turned ashes into gold. Your suffering was the initiation, your awakening is the proof, and your light is the message. The question now is not whether you will shine, but how far your light will reach.